Hi, I'm Matt Golofczynski from What Digital Camera. Now, if you're looking for a compact with a big zoom, but one that you can still slip into your pocket, then you're probably going to be looking at something like this, commonly known as a super zoom compact or a travel compact. Now, there's quite a few of them around at the moment, so we've taken 6 current models and treated them to a day trip around London to see how they fare against each other. First up, we've got Canon's PowerShot SX230HS, which has got a 12.1 megapixel back illuminated sensor, together with a 28 to 392mm zoom lens. It's also got full HD video recording and a GPS system. Next up, we've got the Fujifilm F550 EXR. Now, this is based on Fujifilm's EXR sensor technology, and it's got 16 megapixels and a 24 to 360mm zoom lens. It's also got full HD video recording, and it's the only camera on test to have a RAW mode. Next up, we've got Panasonic's TZ20, which has got a 14.1 megapixel sensor and a 24 to 384mm zoom lens. This has also got a GPS system and full HD video recording, as well as a 3-inch LCD screen with 460,000 dots. We've also got Nikon's S9100, which has got a 12.1 megapixel back illuminated CMOS sensor, as well as a 3-inch LCD screen with 921,000 dots. It's also got the longest zoom on test and full HD recording with stereo sound. Next up, we've got the cheapest model on test, which is the Samsung WB650. Now, this has got a 12 megapixel CCD sensor, together with a 24 to 360mm zoom lens, and it's the only model to have a 3-inch AMOLED screen. It's also got a GPS system and both optical and digital image stabilization. And finally, we've got Sony's CyberShot HX7V. Now, this has got a 16.2 megapixel sensor based on Sony's Exmor R CMOS technology, together with a 25 to 250mm lens. There's also a 3-inch LCD screen on the back with 921,000 dots and Sony's Sweet Panorama technology. Our first stop were the Houses of Parliament, where we tested the image stabilisation, the zoom and the focusing of each camera. The best performers here were the Fuji, Canon and the Nikon. They all moved really quickly through their zoom ranges and they all focused really well too. The Panasonic was quite good as well, as was the Sony. In terms of images captured at these settings, the Canon SX230HS did the best. Its images had really good detail and excellent sharpness. The Fuji also did quite good. It lacked a little bit of bite around the edges and was a little bit soft, but it had quite good detail and just a little bit noise. And the fact that it's got a RAW mode means that you can also process the results to make it even better. Our next stop was St James's Park, where we tested the performance of each camera's LCD, as well as the colour reproduction in its images. The screens on both the Nikon S9100 and the Sony HX7V did really well. Both have got a 921,000 dot resolution, although the Nikon did have a slight edge over the Sony. The Samsung screen, based on the AMOLED technology, it did a really good job to reduce reflections and it had a really good viewing angle too, but its reproduction was a little bit flat. Looking at the images later, it was clear that the Panasonic just edged its way to the top with nice deep greens and vibrant flower heads, and the Canon wasn't too far behind either. The Sony and the Fuji came next. They produced good results, not quite as good as the other two, but nevertheless quite good, while the Samsung and the Nikon didn't do too well, with slightly paler results and washed out colours. Our next stop was Buckingham Palace, where we looked at the accuracy of each camera's auto white balance system. The Canon, Samsung, Fujifilm and Panasonic cameras each did a fantastic job to reproduce the scene how it appeared, even though they all differed slightly from each other. Only the Nikon and the Sony struggled here, the Nikon producing slightly cold green images, while the Sony produced slightly denser, warm images. Our next stop was Trafalgar Square, where we looked at the video performance and the design of each camera. The winner with regards to video quality was the Nikon S9100. Its footage was packed full of detail and it had really good stereo sound quality alongside. Not only that, but it also maintained focus really well as the zoom was being operated. The Canon and Panasonic also did well to produce really detailed footage, and again they had good control over the focusing and the zooming. And the Sony also did quite well to produce detailed footage too. The only two which didn't were the Fuji and the Samsung, both of which had slightly poorer control over the focusing systems while the zoom was being operated, and the video quality itself really wasn't up to much. The best handling came from the Sony and the Fuji cameras. The Sony had a really nice ample rubber lining on the grip, lots of thumb space on the back, and it's quite lightweight too, whereas the slightly unconventional design of the Fuji meant that you could operate the zoom really comfortably and it handled really well too. Our penultimate stop was St Paul's Cathedral, where we looked at the metering system of each camera as well as image contrast. In terms of exposure, the Samsung WB650 seemed to do the best job to keep things consistent. It did a really good job between balancing lighter and darker details. The Sony's results were also pleasing, although because of the white balance issues, its images were left a little bit denser. Canon's SX230HS also did a good job to produce slightly bright images. It did mean that some highlight details were lost, while conversely the Panasonic's images were a little bit underexposed and so not quite as print ready as with some of the others. Our last stop was the London Bridge Experience scare attraction, where we tested the flash performance and the noise from each camera. With flash performance, it was the Sony that did the best job to really illuminate the subject and the background, and the Nikon and the Panasonic also did well. The Fuji and the Canon produced slightly darker results, and the Samsung fared even worse. In terms of noise, the Canon led the way, with the Fuji and the Sony just behind them. The Nikon also did quite well to match these, although the Panasonic and the Samsung noticeably struggled. It's not really a surprise considering that these are the only two cameras that don't have a backlit sensor. If this test proves anything, it's that with a number of similarly specified models, you should really think about what it is you want the camera for. If you want a fast focusing system and a really good screen, for example, you should go straight for the Nikon S9100, whereas if you want really good handling and excellent flash performance and good noise control, you should go for the Sony. If, however, you want a fully featured camera that really handles well, you should go for the Fujifilm, whereas the Panasonic Test1893 is a really good choice if you want nice colourful images and good handling. Overall though, the Canon just has it. Although it's only got a 12.1 megapixel sensor and it doesn't quite have Nikon zoom range, it produces the best images, and that's probably because it sticks to a more modest spec sheet.